A glossy photo slipped from Rachel's laptop, hitting the floor like a stone dropped in a quiet pond. I scooped it up, eyeing the real estate listing in the soft glow of our bedroom in Scottsdale, Arizona. Another high-end flip. Another fat six-figure profit she'd tossed out over coffee that morning, casual as mentioning a sunny day. But something twisted in my gut, sharp and uneasy. At the bottom of the page, a name started back. BlueCrest Ventures LLC. I'd used that name a decade ago, back when I funneled dirty cash through ghost companies for men who didn't negotiate and didn't forgive. I'd buried that name so deep it was supposed to stay dead. Never breathed a word about it, not even to Rachel. So why was it on her paperwork? I sank onto the bed's edge, the photo's numbers blurring as I stared. The place was a modern ranch-style home in Austin, Texas, freshly redone, listed at $2.7 million. Typical for Rachel's game. She flipped properties fast for buyers who paid top dollar for discretion. Guys who reminded me too much of my old contacts. While the shower hissed in the bathroom, I fired up her laptop. Her password was still our wedding date. Rachel never bothered with clever security. Her email spilled open like a diary left unlocked, and I dove in. Half an hour later, I saw the truth clear as day. Those late nights she'd been pulling, the odd-hour phone calls, the way she'd started eyeing me like I was a puzzle she couldn't quite crack. It all clicked. Rachel wasn't just flipping houses. She was laundering money through them, using the shell companies I'd built in my past life, ones she had no right to touch, ones still marked with my digital tracks. She was setting me up to take the fall. The bathroom door swung open, steam curling out like fog off a lake. Rachel stepped out, wrapped in a gray towel, her auburn hair slicked back, looking like she belonged in a perfume ad with a side of deceit. "You're up late," she said, barely glancing my way. "Couldn't sleep," I muttered. She glided to her dresser, smoothing lotion on her arms with the kind of precision that made everything she did feel staged. Rachel moved like every gesture was planned, even the way she flicked her hair. "Saw your new listing," I said, keeping my voice steady. "The Austin Ranch." Her hands froze for a split second. "Yeah? What about it?" "BlueCrest Ventures," I said, watching her closely. This time she stopped dead, turning to face me with a look I didn't recognize. Cold, sharp, like a blade catching light. "You know that name?" she asked. "Should I?" I shot back. Her lips curved into a smile, slow and dangerous, like a coyote sizing up prey. "You tell me, Marcus." The way she said my name, full and deliberate, hit like a punch. Rachel only used Marcus when she was pissed or about to twist the knife. This felt like both. "We need to talk," I said. "Do we?" She let the towel fall, pulling on dark jeans and a cream sweater, dressing like she had a boardroom meeting at 1 a.m. Maybe she did. "I know what you're doing," I said, voice low. "Using my old companies, my setup, to wash money through those real estate deals. You're pinning it on me." She finished zipping her jeans, turning to face me fully. That smile was gone, replaced by something close to pity, which stung worse. "Your company, Marcus. They became mine the day we said I do. Legal wife, legal access, legal liability." She stepped closer, her perfume sharp with a hint of something else. Maybe adrenaline. "Only difference? I'm better at this game than you ever were." I stood, the laptop sliding to the floor with a thud. "You're tying my name to felonies." "Your name was already tied to felonies," she said, cool as ice. "I just made them pay." "The feds will trace this back," I said, my voice tighter than I wanted. "They already have." She grabbed a jacket from the closet. "Agent Harper from Financial Crimes has been sniffing around your old crew for months. Someone tipped them off about sketchy property deals linked to your past." The room felt like it was spinning. "Someone you tipped off," I said. She slipped on earrings, calm as if we were picking a restaurant. "I needed a safety net, Marcus. If this goes south, they'll want a fall guy. Someone with history. Someone replaceable." I watched her primp, my brain tearing through everything I thought I knew about her, our marriage, our life. All of it dust. "Where are you headed?" I asked. "To see Travis," she said, grabbing her purse. Travis Colton, Deputy District Attorney. I'd met him a couple times at her work parties, tall, slick, with a handshake that screamed ambition. He always looked at me like I was a nobody. "Travis knows everything," she said. "Help me set it all up. Turns out, prosecutors know how to play dirty better than crooks." "Rachel," I called as she reached the door. She paused, didn't turn. "Why?" "Because I got sick of being married to a guy who runs a dive bar and thinks he's left his past behind. I wanted someone who's still in the game." The door clicked shut, leaving me in the dark with the ruins of the life I'd tried to build clean. Sleep wasn't happening. I sat at the kitchen table, nursing black coffee, staring at Rachel's laptop as dawn crept through the blinds. By 5:30 a.m., I'd pieced together her whole operation. She was sharp, sharper than I'd ever been. She'd taken my old shell company framework and turned it into a machine, funneling dirty money through legit-looking property deals in places like Austin and Santa Fe. The houses were real, the sales were clean on paper, but the cash was filthy. My name was woven into it all, not blatant, but there, in the company filings, the bank records, the fine print. If the feds wanted to lock me up, they'd have enough to do it for decades. The front door creaked open and Rachel strolled in, looking like she'd just left a yoga retreat, not a night spent rigging my downfall. She saw me at the table and froze just for a second before flashing that calculated smile. "You look like hell," Rachel said, pouring herself coffee and sliding into the chair across from me in our Scottsdale kitchen. "Couldn't sleep," I said, snapping her laptop shut. "Bad dreams." "Where'd you go last night?" I asked, voice flat. "Travis's place," she said, sipping her coffee. "Had some business to sort out." She was in different clothes now, same sleek style, different cut, like she kept a closet at his place. That thought burned. "Agent Harper wants to talk to you," she said casually as if she was mentioning the weather. "When?" I asked, a cold knot tightening in my chest. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m., the federal building in downtown Tucson." She leaned back, watching me. "I told him you'd be all in, cooperative. You've got nothing to hide, right, Marcus?" The way she said it, she knew damn well what I was hiding. "What's Travis getting out of this?" I asked. "Cover," she said, standing to rummage through the fridge. "When this blows up, he's the hero prosecutor who cracked the case, not the guy pulling strings." She pulled out eggs, cracking them into a skillet like we were just chatting about our day. "And me? I will vanish." "Vanish where?" I pressed, my voice sharper than I meant. "Not your problem anymore, Marcus." Her movements were smooth, deliberate, like she'd rehearsed every step. 3 years married, and I was finally seeing her for real. "You had this plan from the start," I said, leaning forward. "Not the start," she said, flipping the eggs. "Maybe a year in, when I got bored with clean money." The sizzle of the pan filled the silence, and my stomach churned. "So you hijacked my old setups," I said. "I used them smarter than you ever did," she shot back, not missing a beat. "The feds will wonder how I got into your old companies after you went straight. You'll figure out a story. You're clever like that." "Or I could tell them the truth," I said, testing her. She turned, spatula in hand, her eyes hard. "The truth? That you're a lifelong crook who got greedy and jumped back in? There's enough in those companies to tie you to every major money laundering scheme in the Southwest for the last 10 years. You point at me, you'll just look like a cornered guy throwing his wife under the bus." She was right, and I hated it. I could see the courtroom already. A slick prosecutor, a polished real estate mogul, and me, the ex-con bar owner. No jury would blink. "You're letting me take the hit for all of it," I said. "You were always going to take a hit for something," she said, sliding a plate of perfectly cooked eggs in front of me. "This way it's worth it." She nodded at the food. "Eat. You'll need energy for tomorrow." I shoved the plate away and stood. "I'm heading to the bar." "Don't do anything dumb, Marcus," she called as I grabbed my keys. "Travis has eyes everywhere." I didn't answer, just walked out, already plotting moves she wouldn't see coming. My bar sat tucked between a vape shop and a pawn joint in a strip mall on the edge of Tucson, Arizona. I'd bought it 6 years back with honest cash, painted it gray, and made it something legit. The neon sign buzzed, flickering between open and pen, which felt too damn fitting. I unlocked the door, flipped the sign, but I wasn't here to serve drinks. I was here to think. Around noon, the bell above the door jangled, and Diego Morales strolled in, cocky as ever. He hadn't changed in the 10 years since I'd last seen him. Still wiry, still jittery like he was wired on caffeine, still rocking a leather vest despite the desert heat. "Marcus," he said, flashing a grin that showed too many teeth. "Heard you're in deep." "News moves fast," I said, locking the door and flipping the sign to closed. "What's Travis Colton asking about me?" "The kind of questions that end with guys like you gone," Diego said, leaning on the counter. Back in the day, he'd been my go-between when digital transfers got too risky. Now he rolled with a biker crew that fixed problems for the right price. "What do you know about Colton?" I asked, keeping my voice low. Enough, Diego said, scratching his jaw. He's crooked but careful, uses his badge to shield certain deals for a cut, likes high-end women and higher-end habits. Hookers and blow, I asked. Not always in that order, he said with a smirk. His eyes sized me up like he was weighing how much trouble I was worth. What do you need? A favor, I said. The kind that squares us. His grin widened. Now you're speaking my language. What's the play? Rachel's got a deal closing Friday, I said. $700,000 cash, Austin property. I want it to tank. Easy, Diego said. We make the buyer flake. Nothing messy, just unreliable. Can you make it happen, I asked. Done, he said, already tapping his phone. What else? Travis Colton, I said. I want him to have a rough week. Diego scrolled through his contacts, his grin turning sharp. I know a guy who knows a guy. What kind of rough? The kind that gets him cuffed, I said. Possession, maybe distribution. Diego's grin turned wolfish, like he was ready to hunt. Now we're cooking, he said. How fast do you need this done? Yesterday, I said. Soon as you can. Gonna cost you $6,000, he said, leaning back. Deal, I said without blinking. He stood heading for the door, then stopped. Marcus, are you sure you want to dive back into this mess? It's uglier than when you left. I thought about Rachel in our kitchen, cool as ice, laying out how she'd torched my life while scrambling eggs. About Agent Harper waiting to grill me tomorrow with questions I couldn't dodge. About Travis Colton cozying up to my wife while helping her pin felonies on me. I never really left, I said. Diego nodded, the bell above the door jangling as he slipped out, sharp like a warning shot. I spent the day digging through old files, pulling contacts I'd sworn I'd never call again. The underworld's like any trade, built on who you know and what they owe you. I'd spent 15 years moving dirty cash, stacking favors, and now I was calling them in. First up was a woman named Jenna Holt. She worked at Desert Star Bank in Tucson, had access to records nobody should see, and owed me big for keeping her cousin out of jail a decade back. Marcus Reed, she said when she picked up, her voice dry. Figured you'd call eventually. You heard? I asked. I hear it all, she said. Your wife's been busy. Can you help? I asked. Depends what you're after, she said. Rachel's operation, I said. Bank accounts. I need to know where she's stashing the cash. That's a tall order, she said. Risky. So let's letting her skate with everything. I shot back. There was a long pause. Meet me at Rusty's Tavern, 7-ish tonight. Come alone. She hung up before I could reply. By 6:30, I'd lined up a tight crew, folks with grudges against Rachel or Travis, and the skills to pull this off. Nothing bloody, nothing that'd land us in a federal pen, but enough to make Rachel's perfect little empire crumble like dry sand. Rusty's Tavern was a dive in Mesa, Arizona, where nobody asked questions, and the cameras hadn't worked since Bush was president. Jenna was in a corner booth, looking wired but focused. She'd put on a few pounds since I last saw her, and her dark hair had silver threads now, but her eyes were still sharp enough to slice through lies. You look rough, she said as I slid in. Feel worse, I said. I checked Rachel's accounts, she said, keeping her voice low. She's slick, real slick. Multiple banks, fake names, everything dressed up to look clean. But she's careless with timing. Big deposits right before property buys, all through shell companies tied to addresses that don't exist. That's a pattern, and patterns get you nabbed. She pushed a plain envelope across the table. Account numbers, routing details, transaction logs, everything you need to cut her off at the knees. I flipped through the papers. Rachel had been hustling hard for 2 years, funneling nearly $9 million through her web, skimming a cut on every deal. How much of this points back to me? I asked. All of it, Jenna said. She used your old company setups to greenlight most of the transfers. If the feds lock these accounts, your name's all over the paperwork. Unless someone with bank access freezes them first, I said, and moves the money where she can't touch it. Jenna leaned in, her voice barely a whisper. I can do it, Marcus. But if this blows back, I'm staring at 20 years in a cell. I want $250,000 and a promise you'll look out for my kids if it goes south. It was a steep price, but it was Rachel's cash. And after tomorrow, I might not have room to bargain. Done, I said. She knocked back her drink and stood. Give me 10 hours. By morning, she's locked out. After she left, I sat there nursing a soda, thinking about Agent Harper's meeting tomorrow. I could bolt, slip across the border to Belize or Costa Rica, start fresh. But running meant Rachel won, and I wasn't about to let that happen. My phone pinged with a text from Diego. Package handled. Check the news tomorrow. I paid my tab and drove back to our Scottsdale house, where Rachel was waiting with a glass of wine and a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "How was your day?" she asked, like we were just catching up. "Busy," I said, keeping it short. "Good," she said, pouring me a glass of red. I took it but didn't sip. "We should talk about tomorrow. Agent Harper's going to ask about those shell companies, how you got back into them after going straight." "What should I say?" I asked, playing along. "Tell him the truth," she said, her voice smooth as glass, "that you never really went clean, that the bar's just a front for your money laundering side hustle, that the real estate deals were you branching out." I set the glass down. "And you?" "I'll be crushed," she said, leaning closer, her perfume laced with something that might have been Travis's aftershave. "Heartbroken to learn my husband's been playing me, hiding crimes behind our marriage." "Real convincing," I said, my jaw tight. "I've had practice," she said, her smile sharp. "Look, Marcus, this doesn't have to be a fight. Cooperate with Harper, take the plea they'll offer, do your time. I'll visit you in lockup. Maybe we can sort things out when you're out." "How long do you think I'll get?" I asked, already knowing the answer. 15, maybe 20 years, she said like it was nothing. "You'll be out by 65. Plenty of time to start over." "And you'll wait?" I asked, testing her. "Of course," she said, but her eyes flickered. A bad lie, the first I'd caught her in. She wasn't planning to be anywhere near me when I got out. By then, she'd be halfway across the globe, living under a new name with the cash I'd helped her clean. "Gotta get some rest," I said, standing. "Big day tomorrow." "It is," she said, watching me go. I hit the bedroom, lying down in my clothes while Rachel sipped her wine in the living room. Around 1 a.m., I heard her phone buzz. She whispered into it for 10 minutes, then hung up and headed to the guest bathroom for a shower. When she came out, she was in a navy dress and heels. "Going somewhere?" I called. "Travis needs me," she said, grabbing her purse. "Last-minute prep for tomorrow." "At 1 in the morning?" I asked. "He's thorough," she said, and walked out without a goodbye, leaving me alone with my plans and the ticking clock. In 6 hours, I'd be face-to-face with a federal agent, deciding how much of my life to gamble for a shot at turning the tables. Rachel thought she had me pegged, the same guy she married 3 years ago, ready to roll over and take the fall like a good little pawn. She was about to find out how wrong she was. Agent Harper looked like he'd stepped out of a cop show casting call, navy suit, salt and pepper hair, eyes that could spot a lie from a mile away. He had a file folder thick enough to choke a horse, and when he flipped it open, my face stared back from a photo clipped inside. "Mr. Reed," he said, voice smooth as gravel. "Thanks for coming in. Your wife's been real helpful, filling us in on your activities." The interview room in Tucson's federal building was a dull beige, reeking of bleach and bad decisions. A camera hummed in the corner, probably recording every word, and a two-way mirror screamed someone was watching. "What activities?" I asked, keeping my tone even. Harper spread documents across the table like he was laying out a poker hand. Bank records, property titles, company filings, all tied to shell companies I'd set up ages ago. "BlueCrest Ventures, Southwest Equity Group, Desert Horizon Holdings," he said, reading off the papers. "Sound familiar?" "Should they?" I said, leaning back. "They should," he said, tapping the stack. "Your name's listed as the founder of everyone." He wasn't wrong. My signature, or something close enough to fool most, sat there in ink, tying me to Rachel's game. She'd covered her tracks well. "Never seen these before," I said. "Funny," Harper said, "because these companies have been shuffling millions through real estate deals for 2 years. Money from sources we're very curious about." I scanned the papers. The deals were legit on paper, the money trail crystal clear, and my so-called role was airtight enough to sway a jury. "Agent Harper," I said, "I run a bar. I don't touch real estate." "What about money laundering?" he asked, eyes narrowing. "You were in that game once." I walked right into that trap. "Not for 10 years, I said. "I did my time." 18 months for fraud, he said. "Money laundering's a bigger beast, carries a heavier sentence, doesn't it?" He was baiting me, fishing in waters where I'd left plenty of hooks. The smart move was to clam up and call a lawyer. But I needed to be more than smart. I needed leverage. "I want a deal," I said. Harper leaned back, sizing me up. "What kind?" "Information for immunity," I said. "The kind that hands you the real players behind these companies." His eyebrow twitched, just enough to show I had his attention. "Keep talking." "These aren't my deals," I said. "Someone's using my name, my old setups, My past connections to run a laundering network. I can give you names, accounts, transaction details, everything to take down the actual crooks. In exchange, I want full immunity and protection. Harper scooped up the papers, tucking them back into the folder. I'll need to run this by my bosses. Don't skip town, Mr. Reed. How long do I have? I asked. 24 hours, he said. After that, we roll with what we've got. I walked out of the federal building feeling like I'd just bartered my soul for a day's grace, but a day was enough. By tomorrow, Rachel's world would be unraveling. My phone buzzed as I slid into my car. Diego's voice crackled through. Turn on Channel 5. I flipped on the radio, catching a news report about a deputy district attorney nabbed on drug charges after cops found coke and an unregistered gun in his car outside a seedy Tempe motel. Travis Colton's name wasn't mentioned, but I could picture his smug face in the mugshot the anchor described. How'd it go down? I asked Diego. Roxanne, he said. She's a pro who caters to suits and politicians. Travis has been a regular for years. Last night, she slipped a little gift into his car while he was occupied. And the gun? I asked. Untraceable piece linked to a cold case from 2019, Diego said. Travis is going to have a hell of a time talking his way out. A cold satisfaction settled in my chest. What's Roxanne's cut? Enough cash to get out of the game, Diego said. Plus, Travis wasn't exactly kind to her. She was happy to help. I hung up and drove to my bar, only to find Rachel leaning against her silver Audi in the parking lot. Even from a distance, I could see the fury in her eyes. We need to talk, she said as I stepped out. About what? I asked, unlocking the bar's door. Travis, she said, following me inside. What you did. She was in a new outfit, black skirt, emerald top, like she was dressed for a fight. I flipped on the lights and faced her across the counter, the space between us feeling like a battlefield. Don't know what you mean, I said. Travis got arrested last night, she said, her voice tight. Cocaine, illegal gun. Someone set him up. Sounds like Travis made some bad calls, I said, shrugging. She stepped closer, her eyes blazing. This was you. Prove it, I said, holding her gaze. I don't need proof, she snapped, her voice rising. I know it. You think you're slick, Marcus? You think you can mess with people like Travis? People with pull, with connections, who can squash you like a roach? I sank onto the stool behind the counter, really looking at her. 3 years of marriage, and I was seeing the real Rachel. Not the woman who poured my coffee and asked about my day, but the one who'd been plotting my downfall since we said our vows. Travis is done, I said. Career's toast, reputation's shot, looking at serious time. Whatever shield he was giving you, it's gone. I don't need Travis anymore, she said, but her voice wavered, just for a second. No, I said. Who's going to cover for you when the feds start digging into those shell companies? They're tied to fake addresses, funded by ghost accounts, and reek of laundering from a mile away. How long do you think it'll take Harper to pin it on you? He won't, she said, stepping closer. Because you're taking the fall. That's the plan. You're the ex-con with a rap sheet. I'm just the poor wife who got dragged into your mess. I reached under the counter and pulled out a plain envelope, setting it between us. What's that? She asked, her eyes narrowing. Bank statements, transaction logs, I said. Proof of who's really been running those companies for 2 years. She reached for it, but I slid it back. It's all here, Rachel. Every deposit, every wire transfer, every cent Rachel skimmed. It all traced back to accounts in her name. Those accounts were locked tight, she said, her voice sharp but unsteady. Were, I said, leaning on the counter. As of this morning, they're frozen, all of them. Her face went pale like the air got sucked out of her. You can't do that, she said. Already did, I said. My contact at Desert Star Bank was thorough. Your backup accounts, safety nets, gone. She lunged for the envelope, but I was quicker, yanking it back. Papers spilled across the floor as we grappled, and I saw raw panic in her eyes, something I'd never seen before. You bastard, she hissed, catching her breath. You have no idea what you've done. I know exactly what I've done, I said. I cut off your exit. You've got people expecting $9 million who don't take kindly to losing it. That's your mess now, not mine. She stepped back, smoothing her emerald top with trembling hands. This isn't over, Marcus. It is, I said. She headed for the door, then paused, turning back. I loved you, she said, her voice softer. At the start, I really did. Nah, I said, shaking my head. You loved the thrill of marrying a guy with a past. When you saw I'd gone straight, you decided to drag me back into the dark. Your way. She didn't say another word, just walked out, leaving me with the scattered proof of her schemes and the cold satisfaction of knowing I'd gutted her plans as cleanly as she'd tried to gut mine. But I wasn't finished. At 2:00 a.m., my phone buzzed, jarring me from staring at the ceiling in our Scottsdale bedroom. The number was unfamiliar. "Marcus," a woman's voice said, shaky and low. "It's Rachel. I need help." I flicked on the lamp and sat up. "Where are you?" "Downtown near the Tucson Federal Building," she said. "They froze everything. Accounts, safety deposit boxes, all my assets. I can't even afford a motel." "Sounds like your problem," I said, keeping my voice flat. "Please, Marcus," she said. "I know I screwed you over, but I'm scared. People are after me, the ones whose money I was cleaning. They don't mess around." I could hear cars honking in the background, maybe a siren far off. "What about Travis?" I asked. "Still locked up," she said. "His lawyer says he's looking at 7 to 12 years. He's useless to me now." I walked to the window, peering out at the quiet street, just a stray dog sniffing around. "What do you want from me?" "Money," she said. "Just $60,000 to disappear until this cools off." "That's a big ask," I said. "That's everything in my clean accounts." "I'm begging you, Marcus," she said, and I heard something new in her voice. Real, raw fear. It almost made me feel bad for her. Almost. "Meet me at the bar 8 a.m., I said. "Thank you," she whispered, and I hung up, lying back down but not sleeping. My mind replayed a talk with Diego from earlier. "She's gonna bolt," he'd said. "Soon as she sees how screwed she is, she'll vanish." "Let her try," I'd said. "I've got her money." "Money's not all she's tied to," Diego had warned. "She's got debts to people who don't care about frozen accounts, people who make problems disappear permanently." I'd told him to keep tabs on her, make sure she didn't skip town before I was done, but I didn't expect her to come crawling to me. At 7:30 a.m., I opened the bar in Mesa and waited. Rachel showed up right on time, looking like she'd slept on the street. Her polished edge was gone, replaced by a woman who looked hunted. "You look rough," I said as she stepped inside. "Feel worse," she said, voice hollow. I locked the door and flipped the sign to closed. "Tell me about these investors," I said, leaning against the counter. She sank into a chair, head in her hands. "They're Italians, Kimura," she said. "They needed clean cash, and I delivered. But with the accounts frozen, they think I ripped them off." "Did you?" I asked. "I took a cut," she said. "Nothing crazy, just a few points per deal. Standard stuff." "How much?" I asked. "About $2.5 million over 2 years," she admitted. I let out a low whistle. "That's not a cut. That's stealing." "I was going to pay it back," she said. "Set up a transfer from an offshore account in Malta. Make it look like I recovered the funds. But now I can't, because everything's locked." I pulled a cashier's check from my desk and set it between us. $60,000, I said. "Like you asked." She grabbed it, staring like it was her lifeline. "Thank you, Marcus," she said. "I know I don't deserve this." "There's a catch," I said, cutting her off. Her eyes, those same hazel eyes that hooked me 3 years ago, met mine. "What?" "I want you to sign over everything," I said. "The house, the business accounts, the shell companies, all of it. Full legal transfer to me." She froze. "Most of that's already frozen or under investigation." "Not everything," I said. "You've still got assets in your name. I want them." She stared at me, wheels turning. The check was her ticket out, but signing over her empire meant she'd have nothing to come back to. "If I do this, I'm done for good," she said. "That's the point," I said. "Or you can hand back the check and deal with your Italian friends yourself." She glanced around the bar, at the old guitars on the walls, the display case of pawned rings, the dusty electronics people had traded for quick cash. "This is what you want?" she asked. "This little dive bar and a life that's going nowhere?" "I want a life without you," I said. She didn't argue. She signed every paper I slid her way, her pen moving with the tired precision of someone out of moves. When she was done, I handed her a thick envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Travel papers, new identity, passport, credit cards," I said. "Enough to get you somewhere safe and start fresh." She opened it, flipping through the documents. They were legit. Diego's contacts could craft papers that'd pass any border check. "The passport says Elena Torres," she said. "Your new name," I said. "The cards have a $60,000 limit, enough to keep you afloat while you figure out what's next." "Where am I supposed to go?" Rachel asked, clutching the envelope like it was her last lifeline. "Colombia, Bogota," I said. "Big city, easy to blend in. No extradition treaty with the U.S. "You've thought of everything," she said, her voice flat. "I'll try," I said. She stood, tucking the envelope into her purse, and gave me one last look. I did love you, Marcus, she said. Maybe not the way you wanted, but in my own messed up way. Sure, I said. I'll try to forget it all. She nodded, hand on the door. Flights tonight, 10 p.m. Phoenix to Dallas, then Dallas to Bogota. Don't miss it. I won't, she said, stepping into the Mesa morning sun. I watched through the bar's window as she slid into her Audi and peeled out, probably for good. Then I called Diego. It's done, I said. She's got the documents and the cash. The plane leaves tonight. Are you sure about this? Diego asked. Once she's on that flight, there's no undoing it. That's the plan, I said and hung up. The rest of the day, I sifted through the papers Rachel had signed over. The Scottsdale house was worth about $450,000 after the mortgage. The business accounts had another $120,000 in clean funds. The shell companies were useless now, but they'd done their job. By 5 p.m., I'd funneled everything into account Diego's people controlled. Clean money, washed through legit businesses, untouchable by any federal probe. My phone rang at 7:00 p.m., Agent Harper. Mr. Reed, we need to talk, he said. About what? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Your wife, he said. We've been trying to reach her for questioning, but she's gone. The house is empty, the car's missing, the phone's dead. You wouldn't know where she is, would you? I glanced out my apartment window. Rachel's Audi sat in the driveway of what used to be our place, but the house was dark as a tomb. Haven't seen her since yesterday, I said. Interesting, Harper said, because someone used her personal codes to access her frozen accounts this morning, wired $2.5 million to accounts in the Bahamas. My stomach dropped. What kind of access? I asked. Transfers, he said. Money that was supposed to be evidence in our case. He paused. You need to come in tonight, Mr. Reed. The line went dead and I sat there staring at my phone as my plan fell apart. Rachel had played me like a cheap fiddle. That desperate call, the sob story about Italian investors, the grateful act when I handed her the check, it was all a con. She'd never planned to board that plane to Colombia. She'd used my documents and cash to buy time, tapping accounts I didn't know existed to move money I couldn't trace. By now, she was probably halfway to some country that didn't care about extradition or big cash deposits. I grabbed my keys and headed out. If Harper wanted a chat, we'd have plenty to talk about. The Tucson Federal Building was quiet at 8 p.m., but Harper's office glowed like a beacon. He was waiting with 2 mugs of coffee and a file thicker than a brick. Sit, he said. I did. The coffee was cold and bitter, like it had been sitting since noon. Your wife's a piece of work, Harper said. Smarter than we thought. How's that? I asked. She's been running 2 games, he said, opening the folder. While she was setting you up to take the fall for the real estate laundering, she was skimming from the people she was supposed to be helping. He spread out bank statements, wire records, and grainy surveillance photos. These accounts popped up this morning, hidden behind layers of shell companies and fake IDs. She's been moving money through them for over a year. I skimmed the documents. The numbers were insane. $4 million funneled through accounts tied to names I'd never heard, all linked to Rachel through digital trails and transaction patterns. She stole from her own clients? I asked. Worse, Harper said. She built a whole side hustle, laundering their cash without them knowing. A shadow operation. Where is she now? I asked. Gone, he said. Vanished last night after moving the funds offshore. We've got alerts at airports, borders, ports. Nothing so far. I set down the mug and met his eyes. What's this got to do with me? Everything, he said, pulling out more papers. Signatures that look like mine. Authorizations in my name. Evidence tying me to crimes I didn't commit. According to this, you're her partner in this side hustle. Just like the real estate scam. As far as the paper trail goes, Marcus Reed is the brains behind a multi-million-dollar laundering network running for 2 years. That's not me, I said. You know it, I know it. Proving it in court's the problem, Harper said, especially with your wife conveniently missing. I leaned back, feeling the walls tighten around me. Rachel had played a longer game than I'd ever imagined. Even her so-called surrender was a move to escape with the cash while leaving me to eat the blame. What do you want from me? I asked. Same as yesterday, Harper said. Information, names, details about her operation. I thought about the papers she'd signed, handing over assets that were probably worthless now. The fake passport and cards, likely trashed somewhere. The plane ticket to Bogota she'd never planned to use. She mentioned Italian investors, I said. Camorra said they were the source of the money she was cleaning through the properties. Harper leaned forward, pen ready. Names? She didn't give any, I said. Just said they were dangerous, didn't take kindly to being ripped off. What else? He pressed. She was terrified, I said. Claimed she skimmed about $2.5 million over 2 years. Thought they'd come after her. Harper scribbled notes. Anything more? I hesitated, then laid it out. Travis Colton, I said. He was in her pocket. She said he was protecting her operation, getting a cut and personal favors in return. When I finished spilling everything, Agent Harper shut the folder and fixed his eyes on me. Here's the deal, Mr. Reed, he said. You help us track down your wife and the money she swiped, and we'll talk about a plea deal to keep you out of a federal cage. What kind of deal? I asked, leaning forward. Cooperation, he said. You help us nail the people she was working with, and we'll push for a light sentence on the charges we can pin on you. How light? I pressed. 3 to 5 years, he said, likely in minimum security. It wasn't a dream come true, but it beat the 20 years I'd been staring down if Rachel's plan had gone through. And if I don't play ball, I asked, then you face trial as the kingpin of a multi-million-dollar laundering ring, Harper said. You'll spend your golden years behind bars. I weighed my options. Help the feds and do a short stint, or fight the charges and lose it all anyway. I want guarantees, I said. Like what? Harper asked, eyebrows raised. Protection, I said. If I'm going after Italian mob types, I need to know they can't come for me. We can arrange that, he said. What else? I want proof you're really chasing Rachel, I said. Not just using me to tie up loose ends while she sips cocktails in some no-extradition paradise. Harper's lips twitched, like he was holding something back. Your wife crossed some nasty people, Mr. Reed. Even if we don't find her, I doubt she's living the high life. There was an edge to his voice that hinted he knew more than he was letting on. What aren't you telling me? I asked. The Italians she mentioned, Camorra, they're not just dangerous, he said. They've got tentacles in every major city worldwide. She might think she's safe, but there's nowhere they can't reach. You think they'll get to her? I asked. I think she's got bigger problems than us, he said. An hour later, I signed the cooperation agreement, walking out of the Tucson Federal Building as a federal informant with a bullseye on my back. Driving home through Mesa's quiet streets, I felt something I hadn't in months. Relief. Rachel might have won the escape, but she'd lost by crossing people who didn't forgive. Wherever she was, whatever name she was using, she'd be checking her rearview mirror forever. It wasn't the revenge I'd planned, but it felt like justice all the same. 3 weeks later, I was sorting through old inventory at the bar when Diego strolled in, his grin carrying news. She's gone, he said, no preamble. I set down a box of pawned watches. Who's gone? Rachel, he said. They found her in a motel room in Nogales yesterday. 3 shots to the head. Clean, professional hit. I gave him my full attention. How do you know? My buddy's with the Nogales PD, he said. He tips me off when interesting cases pop up. What was she doing in Mexico? I asked. Running, like always, Diego said. Word is, she'd been bouncing around for a month, trying to stay ahead of the people she ripped off. I thought back to the last time I saw her, signing over her assets in my bar, looking desperate but still sharp, like she had one last card to play. Did she have the money on her? I asked. Here's the kicker, Diego said. The room was clean. No cash, no cards, no ID. Whoever took her out took everything, or she stashed it somewhere first. He slid a manila envelope across the counter. What's this? I asked. Details on her last month, he said. Where she went, who she talked to, where she might have hidden the cash. I opened it, finding surveillance photos, motel receipts, and phone logs. The pictures showed Rachel in places like Tucson, El Paso, and San Antonio. Always alone, always glancing over her shoulder. The receipts were cash payments under fake names. The phone records showed calls to banks in the Bahamas, Malta, and Hong Kong. She was trying to move the money, I said, but she got clipped before she could. Timeline says she was hit about 5 hours after her last call to a bank in Zurich. Diego said, Who did it? I asked. Could be the Italians, he said. Could be the feds tying up loose ends. Could be someone else. Dead's dead. I flipped through the photos again. The last ones, taken in Nogales days before her death, showed a Rachel I barely recognized. Haggard, scared, a shadow of the polished woman I'd married. Why show me this? I asked. Figured you'd want closure, Diego said. And there's one more thing. He set a small brass key on the counter. What's this? I asked. Safety deposit box, he said. Desert Star Bank, downtown Tucson, box 319. How do you know about it? I asked, picking up the key. I helped her set it up 2 years ago, he said, back when we were still tight. before you went clean and ghosted me. I turned the key over in my hand, heavier than it looked. What's in it? No clue, Diego said. She never told me, and I didn't ask. Professional respect. Why didn't she clear it out before she ran? I asked. Maybe she forgot, he said. Maybe it was her emergency stash. Maybe she never got the chance. What do you want for this? I asked. Nothing, Diego said, grinning. Call it a belated wedding gift. After he left, I sat in the bar, staring at the key, thinking about dead wives, hidden money, and whatever final twist Rachel might have left behind. The next morning, I drove to Tucson. Desert Star Bank was a sleek glass building in the financial district, the kind of place where big money moved quietly. I showed the key and my ID to a security guard built like a linebacker, and he led me to a private vault room in the basement. Box 319 was bigger than I'd expected, large enough for folders, cash, maybe more. I cracked open the safety deposit box, half expecting a trap. Inside, neat stacks of $100 bills stared back, bound tight with rubber bands. A quick count put it at about $250,000. Beneath the cash, I found documents, bank details for institutions in countries I'd barely heard of, places like Seychelles and Belize. Access codes, routing numbers, authorization forms, all the tools someone would need to move money without leaving a trace. At the bottom, a single page caught my eye. My name scrawled across the top in Rachel's handwriting. Marcus, it read, if you're reading this, I'm likely gone, and you're the one who got here first. The accounts listed here hold about $5 million in clean funds, money I siphoned off over the years, kept separate from the rest. Call it my backup plan, or maybe my apology. I know I hurt you, but I loved you in my own broken way. Take the money and vanish. Start fresh somewhere safe. Don't repeat my mistakes. I read it 3 times, then tucked the note and account details into my pocket. The cash went into a duffel bag I'd brought along. Walking out of Desert Star Bank in Tucson, I thought about the woman who wrote that letter. Not the scheming mastermind who'd tried to pin her crimes on me, but the scared, cornered woman who'd spent her final weeks running from shadows. Maybe she'd loved me in her twisted way. Maybe it started as love and turned into something darker when she got bored with an honest life. Or maybe this was her last con, a note meant to soften my memory of her. It didn't matter. She was gone. I drove back to Mesa with $5 million in untraceable assets and a plan to get far away from federal probes, Italian mobsters, and a bar that held too many ghosts. But I had one stop left. The house in Scottsdale felt smaller than I remembered. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a flat roof, and a scraggly orange tree in the yard that hadn't seen a trim in ages. Rachel and I had called it home for 3 years, back when I thought we had a future. I parked in the driveway and let myself in with my key. The place was empty, but her perfume lingered, mixed with the faint scent of the lavender candles she used to light in the living room. I wandered through, memories hitting like static. Quiet mornings when we'd laughed over coffee, fights that left us raw, the kitchen where she'd laid out her betrayal while flipping pancakes, the bedroom where I'd found that damn photo that started it all. In her closet, I found what she'd left behind. Silk dresses, high-end heels, jewelry worth more than my bar. All of it ditched when she knew her time was up. I boxed it all up, loaded it into my car. I'd donate it, let it become someone else's prize instead of a reminder of a woman who was never real. Tucked behind the bathroom mirror, I found a photo, our wedding day, both of us grinning like we believed in forever. I stared at it, trying to recall the guy in the picture, the one who trusted too easily, who thought love could outlast greed. That guy was gone, buried as surely as Rachel was in that Nogales motel. I slipped the photo into my pocket and left the house for good. 3 days later, I met Agent Harper at a diner near the Tucson Federal Building. He looked worn out, like he'd been chasing dead ends too long. "We found her," he said as I slid into the booth. "Heard," I said, sipping lukewarm coffee. "Mexican authorities are on it, but we're assisting," he said. "Whoever took her out was pro. No witnesses, no evidence, no leads." "Any guesses?" I asked. "Plenty, no proof," he said, stirring his coffee. "The money she stole, $5.2 million, moved through accounts in 8 countries. We've frozen what we can, but most of it's vanished into banks that don't play nice with us." "That's rough," I said, keeping my face neutral. Harper leaned in. "You wouldn't know anything about where that money ended up, would you?" "Not a clue," I said, "because if someone had intel on those accounts, intel that led to recovering stolen funds, it'd be worth a lot to the feds." "How much?" I asked, setting down my mug. "Enough to sweeten a cooperation deal," he said. I thought about the safety deposit box, Rachel's note, and the $5 million I could access. Agent Harper, I said, let's make a deal. I give you everything I know about Rachel's operation. Names, dates, methods, contacts, the works. Enough to take down a laundering network that's been running for a decade, tied to mob figures in 4 countries. In return, I want full immunity. No jail, no probation, no leash on where I go or what I do. That's a big ask, he said, eyes narrowing. I'm offering something big, I said. You'll get assets worth tens of millions and a case that'll make headlines. Harper sat quiet, weighing the optics of a bust that size. I'll need to clear it with my bosses, he said finally. Naturally, I said. Assuming they're on board, I can start talking today. One condition, though. What's that? He asked. When this is done, case is built, arrest made, I disappear. New name, new place. Total break from all this. Witness protection, or something like it. 2 weeks later, I signed a new deal granting full immunity for intel that'd keep the feds busy for years. I spent 3 months in debriefs, laying out everything I knew about laundering schemes, shell company setups, and the criminal web Rachel had pulled me into. The intel I handed over sparked 52 arrests across 7 countries, the seizure of over $35 million in assets, and the takedown of one of the biggest money laundering networks in the Western Hemisphere. The headlines screamed about the largest organized crime bust in years. My name never made the papers. The island was straight out of a postcard. Sandy beaches, turquoise waves, palm trees swaying in breezes that carried the scent of salt and hibiscus. I'd been living there for 7 months under a name nobody tied to laundering schemes, federal probes, or wives found dead in Mexican motels. My rented bungalow was modest but cozy, with a view of the Gulf of Mexico and neighbors who kept to themselves. In the mornings, I'd stroll the shore, watching shrimp boats haul in their nets. Afternoons, I'd read novels and sip tequila, trying to push the past out of my head. Evenings, I'd cook simple dinners and hit the sack early, like a guy whose biggest worry was a cloudy forecast. It was a good life. Quiet, calm, easy. It was also dull as dirt. I'd thought I wanted this after everything. Rachel, the feds, the whole twisted mess. I thought I'd craved a clean break from cons and vengeance. But 7 months in paradise, and I was realizing some folks aren't wired for the slow lane. My phone buzzed on a Wednesday morning while I was sipping coffee, watching gulls swoop over the water. The number was blocked, but I picked it up anyway. Marcus, a familiar voice said. It took a second to place it. Diego, I said. How'd you get this number? I've got my ways, he said, chuckling. How's the island life? Not bad, I said. What's up? Got a business idea for you, he said. The legit kind. No feds, no bodies. I'm out of the game, I said, leaning back in my chair. This ain't that game, he said. It's above board. Importing custom cars from Italy, selling to collectors in the States, using the profits to build a security consulting firm. Why me? I asked, staring out at the waves. You know money, he said. How to move it, grow it, keep it clean. I need a partner I can trust to handle the books while I run operations. And you trust me? I asked. You could have ratted me out to the feds, he said. You didn't. That's worth something. I watched a sailboat glide past, its crew waving like I was just another sun-soaked tourist. I'll think it over, I said. Don't think too long, Diego said. Chances like this don't wait. After we hung up, I sat on the porch, mulling over legit work, second shots, and whether a guy like me could really change. Rachel's $5 million could keep me comfortable forever if I played it smart. Stay on this island, move to another, or find some nowhere town nobody's heard of. I could read, drink, watch sunsets until I keeled over from old age or boredom. Or I could take the tricks I'd learned in my shady past and use them to build something real, something that created wealth instead of just shuffling dirty cash. That night, I called Diego back. I'm in, I said. Just like that? He asked, sounding surprised. I glanced at the Gulf where fishing boats were docking with their day's haul, honest work, honest pay, no jail time or corpses. I'm done running from who I was, I said. Time to figure out who I can be. 8 months later, I was back in the States, settled in a city I'd never visited before, running a business that operated in the open, not the shadows. The car import gig was killing it, pulling in more than we'd hoped, and the security consulting side was growing steady. I had a new name, a clean credit file, and a future free of feds, mobsters, or wives trying to frame me. Best of all, I had something new, a legit way to use the skills I'd honed in a crooked life. It wasn't the ending I'd pictured when this all started. It wasn't about revenge, justice, or even closure. It was a start. and sometimes a start's enough.